This is the VOLTA Custom JAILBREAKER, a handmade overdrive pedal from Italy, inspired by one of the most iconic British amp sounds of all time. But there is something to clarify right away. This is not trying to be a clone of the Bluesbreaker pedal. The idea here is very different. The JAILBREAKER is inspired by the sound and feel of the original JTM45 Bluesbreaker amp. You know, that cranked vintage tone where the distortion doesn't feel like a separate effect, but like the amp itself, just starting to work harder. So the main thing I want to focus on this video is not just how much gain it has. What matters here is the response, how it reacts to your pick attack, how it cleans up with the guitar volume, how it goes from a softer bluesy breakup to a more aggressive classic rock tone, because this kind of pedal only really makes sense if it feels connected to your hands. The main controls are very straightforward: drive, tone and volume. Drive controls how hard the pedal is working, from a more open, slightly broken up sound to a thicker vintage crunch. Tone lets you shape the brightness and attack, so you can keep it warmer and rounder or push it into a more cutting lead sound. And volume sets the output level, so you can use it either as your main drive sound or push the front of your amp harder. I think the most interesting thing is how much control you still have from the guitar. If I keep the pedal in that edge-of-breakup range, the sound is not locked into one single level of distortion. If I play softer, it opens up. If I dig in, it gets more aggressive. And if I roll the guitar volume back, it doesn't just become quieter, it actually cleans up. That's exactly the kind of behavior you want from a pedal that is trying to capture an amp-like response. Then you have the hot section. That's the right side of the pedal. And this is not a completely different world. And to me, that's a good thing. It feels more like taking the same amp and pushing it harder. You get extra gain, extra sustain, and with the hot level on, you can decide if you want it to stay balanced with the main sound or jump forward for lead. So you can set the main side as your rhythm sound and use the hot side as your lead boost. Or you can keep it always on if you want that more saturated vintage rock voice. The extra switches are where the JAILBREAKER becomes more flexible. The tight control helps you shape the low end. If your amp is already full in the low end, or if you are using humbuckers, tightening the low end can make the drive feel more focused. Then you have the mids control. And this is very important, because vintage drive tones are not just about gain, they are about where the guitar sits in the mix. More mids can make the sound more vocal and present. Less mids can make it feel more open and less forward. So you just have to try and see what works best for what you need. And then there is the mojo. This is probably the control that tells you the most about what this pedal is trying to do. It's not just an EQ change, it changes the feel, the sag, the compression, the way the note reacts after the pick attack. These 3 mini switches are the part that makes it feel less like a distortion box and more like an amp being pushed. The JAILBREAKER lives in the world of blues rock, blues, classic rock, British crunch, dynamic lead tones. It's more about touch, harmonics and response rather than pure saturation. So if you are looking for a tight, modern metal distortion, this is probably not the right tool. But if you want that British, vintage, amp on the edge sound, this is exactly 100% what you need. Now, let's stop talking for a moment and just listen to the controls. Let's tweak and explore every single knob and every single switch we have here. This is where you really understand what the JAILBREAKER is doing. So, who is the Jailbreaker really for? I think the Jailbreaker is perfect for you if you love those early British amp tones, the Eric Clapton, John Mayall kind of thing, where the guitar is warm, vocal and dynamic. It's perfect if you play blues rock, classic rock or late 60s and 70s inspired music, where the drive needs to breathe and react to your hand. It makes a lot of sense if you want a JTM-style crunch without having to turn a loud amp all the way up. It's also great if you use a clean amp, like a Fender for instance, and you want to add that vintage British character in front of it. And also it's very useful if you like controlling the gain from the guitar itself with the volume knob, instead of always switching sounds from the pedal board. I would also say it can work perfectly as an always-on bass tone. In this scenario, the sweet spot is where it's not completely clean nor completely overdriven, just that little bit of movement and harmonic content that makes your guitar feel alive. On the other hand, it's probably not the right pedal if you need motor metal tightness, very compressed lead tones, or a super saturated hard rock distortion. That's not really what this pedal is about. This is more about vintage amp behavior, less predictable but more alive. It doesn't force you into one fixed sound. You have to play it, you have to use the guitar control, you have to change your touch, and this pedal will always follow you. And when a pedal allows you to get this level of interaction with the guitar, that is usually a very good sign. This is the VOLTA Custom Jailbreaker, handmade in Italy with a very clear idea behind it, bringing that vintage British amp feel into a pedal format. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. You can find all the info about VOLTA Custom in the description box below. I am Riccardo and I'll see you in the next one.